Hello and welcome to a new episode of Product and Cake. Basically, this is our first episode in the third season, and we start already with a special episode because here with me in the virtual recording studio is not only Gonche. Hello, Gonche. Nice to have you.
Hello. It's really nice to finally kick off the season 3.
Yes, we are so excited, and we are even more excited because we have a special guest here today with us. Welcome, Christoph.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for
Christoph.
having me for your new season kickoff. I'm very happy to be here and talk about how to get out of endless meetings and all this crazy stuff happening in our everyday lives. So
yeah,
nice.
That is the perfect start for this third season where we want to dive deeper into what a product manager is doing and how can I learn everything that is needed. And you spent already quite a while to not even learn and do, but also introduce your brand new mapping method we will dive into, and we are super keen to learn more. But before we do that, let us start with the check-in question, because in every good meeting you should start with that question that creates a human connection and also let everyone arrive to the meeting. So my question, first of all to you, Christoph, is what were you really into when you were a kid?
When I was a kid, so I was really heavily into planes and aircrafts. So my father worked in this area, and so I had tons of books at home and could name every jet in the world and everything of that. Of course, I forgot everything about that. But funnily enough, I also worked then in my first real job with aircraft. So.
That's really cool.
Somehow put me into a trajectory.
Nice. And did you visit it from time to time, the spectator platform in airports?
Yeah, this, and also there was a small airfield near to our home where this private small plane started and things like that. So enjoyed that, and also had the chance to sometimes saw it in my job, fighter jets starting, which is really exciting.
Nice. That sounds really cool. Very reasonable for people with tech background. What about you, Gonche? What were you really into when you were a kid?
Yeah, it depends which age, because I think I was really into a lot of things at different ages. But I think one of the things that I was really into, and I still am really into, is a specific. My mouth is already watering. So it's a type of food. No, it's a snack. It's a Persian snacks where usually. So it's a Persian snack. It is sour. It is kind of like a fruit leather. And it's called lawashak. I am still obsessed with lawashak. That is the only constant through my whole life that stayed with me. Sorry, my mouth is still watering. So that's the thing that I was obsessed with. But besides that, I was and I still am really obsessed with crafts. So anything crafty, I used to love, and I still do love. I recently am learning how to do embroidery.
Nice.
Embroidery? What is that?
Embroidery. So let me actually show you so you can see it. But
yeah. So our Patreon users can see the video recording. We don't have
yeah, you can explain what it is to the others. So
Sticken
I am
in German, I guess, right?
Yeah.
It's with needle, and you make cute patterns.
Artful stitching.
Yes.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice flying turtle.
Yeah, that looks beautiful.
Thank you. How about you, Paul?
Yeah, for me, my answer is also still moving me today, because already as a kid, I was totally into the audio series of the Three Investigators. That is, three detectives that solves complicated puzzles. And when I was starting coding, I was always listening to that audiobooks, to that audio plays while coding. That was somehow totally relaxing me and bringing me into the flow. That was was just perfect. And then one day I met one of the actors who speaks one of the roles in that play, and he asked what I'm doing, and I said I build websites, and he said, "Oh, I need a new website. Could you do that?" And yeah, that was already the top of my career. Everything else afterwards is
I
less
recently
exciting.
learned that there are two versions. There are a group that are 3 question marks, and there's a group that is 3 exclamation marks.
Oh yeah, the ones are girls, and the other ones are
Okay.
boys, and the exclamation marks are much newer. In my childhood, they were not there, but my daughter's unfortunately listening to them and not to the 3 question marks. That's
Even I am listening to the 3 question marks, not voluntarily, but my girlfriend uses that as a sleeping sound. So for podcast for sleeping, which is,
yeah.
yeah,
Tell
very
her that I
interesting
built the
choice.
website for Justus Jonas.
I'm sure she listens to this episode. But now
Awesome.
let's go and learn a little bit more about our guest.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Christoph, for accepting our invitation and for joining us in this episode.
Yeah, thanks to be here. So
And I would like to, first of all, and also I'm sure our listeners would like to learn a little bit more about your background. How come you ended up in tech? We learned a little bit, we got some snippets, but we would like to learn more.
yeah, of course. So I'm currently working as a product coach and consultant, but I wasn't born as one, as nobody is. So, and as you hear, I'm also German, but I currently live in Washington D.C. But will be back in Germany in the next couple of years. So how did I get here? So as I said before, I started to work with like aircraft, but not directly, but I did like web development, did a lot of like content management system stuff and things like that. But then I moved more into design. So I worked then like 15 years as a like product designer, interaction designer, also did some stuff in the field of interactive exhibitions, which coached me a lot on how to iterate many times, how to test things, how to prototype really cheaply and quickly with cardboard and fun things. But then I moved into product management roles and product leadership roles. And now I'm supporting other product managers and leaders in their day-to-day business, tackling their complicated problems, and often talk about strategic decisions and other complicated things, which is in our daily lives as product people.
Nice. That is super cool. And also, I really like that you had a very unconventional route to product management, which almost all of us do. None of us has a cookie cutter path to product management. It's always going from one side to the other. But you also experience both the design aspect and the tech aspect of product management, which in some of the future episodes we open this a little bit more, that what are the main aspects of product management, like what is a product manager an intersection of. And it's really interesting that you have already in your background covered all of the pillars to it.
Yeah. I completely stumbled into product management. So I think my first jobs, I wasn't even really aware that this is now called product management. So I think for a lot of us happened like that.
What was the reason? Why did you? I mean, when you say you stumble into product management, what was your reason to stay there and not jumping immediately back to design or engineering?
So for me, the intersection of things was so interesting because I like design, I like to do the things, but I also was always quite interested in the tech thing. And I also have a little knack for like business models and how the stuff works, how everything comes together. So when I learned this field or when I encountered this field, it was like, this is how it works. And funnily enough, I studied in between multimedia production, it was called back then, which was more exactly like this. So I did business planning, I did a little bit of design, I did a little bit of programming. But back then, like in the early 2000s, at least in my surrounding, nobody talked about product management.
Maybe the job description or the role is also pretty new, as our tech products also got more and more advanced and more business critical. So when you say you are now teach people or support people in training and so on, do you get from time to time the request that someone wants to go back? I'm asking for a friend here. That if you are more in this management position, right? You have a lot of jumps between things, right? You mentioned already between business model, then you need to do concrete product discussions, then you need maybe to facilitate a retrospective, then you need to help engineering understand what was said in the previous meeting, and so on and so forth. And sometimes you may get the feeling of, oh, damn it, I wouldn't like to block now several hours out of my calendar and just go into the editor and develop it myself. Is that something you saw already, or is that more special?
I hear that, of course, sometimes, but it's not really a pattern I see, that a lot of people want to go back into, like the coding day to day. But of course, what I'm seeing is like people doing this either as a hobby or just like getting also a little bit engaged. So not going into night shifts, but I think it helps, of course, to be able to talk also as a product leader about more complicated technical things or about like design things. So of course you also are not usually after a couple of years are into every new trend. So, and then people discover, oh, it's got more and more complicated. Oftentimes I think they're like happy where they are.
Yeah, the speed of our innovation is so fast these days. It's exponentially going forward that it is really hard to keep up with a certain aspect of product management. So, for example, like with design, I came initially from a design background to product management, but also I cannot keep up with all of the different tools and mechanisms that you need to use and you need to follow. So I am not a good designer, even though if I was at some point in the past a good designer, I am not even a bad designer at this point. I cannot do that. So it is important that, yes, true, we come from these different aspects and different dimensions, but we sum it up in a way that we cannot necessarily do each one of those roles to the same level as one person who has the ability and expertise in that specific role, even though maybe a couple of years ago we would have been the top of the list for that specific aspect of product management. But also with the coaching that you do, can you give us a little bit more info? Like, what do you do? Do you coach the people who are already a product manager, do already have their career to get better, to get to the next step? Or no, also early careers, similar to this season 3 of our podcast, that we are focusing more on early careers and transitioning into product management. So where do you focus more?
Yeah, so I usually focus more on the more senior folks. So either senior product managers or product leaders. And oftentimes I help them if they come into a new situation. So either they did like get a promotion, or they just find a new situation, they're restructuring the organization, situations like that. And then oftentimes we work on a question like on the skill gaps. sometimes. So what are they not aware of, especially if they're starting with leadership roles, like the people management aspect and also the more strategic aspect of their work, or also just like what to do next, how to structure the day, what is the things they should concentrate on, because as we all know, our days are not endless, and
Unfortunately.
are some decisions to make. So navigating this is usually what I help with.
Interesting. And then I assume, even though the days are not endless, some people coming up and say, "Hey, how do I get rid of endless discussions and align to next actions?" Because that is exactly the headline in the PDF file you sent us upfront,
Exactly.
to introduce your method, right? So how does
Yeah.
it come that you start to build your own method where we have already plenty of them in place?
Yeah. So one thing I see mostly everywhere is that we have these meetings and we go into these meetings and come out with like more questions, and often the question where, okay, when do we meet next? And the result was probably an informative and interesting conversation, but oftentimes quite pointless. So some people go down into rabbit holes. Some people just focus on a certain aspect and completely lose the bigger picture. I think, like, I don't know, Paul Goncha, you ever experienced something like that?
No, of course not. We are so professional and perfectly set. That's why we have this podcast, right?
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, but joking aside, yeah, it is something that all of us go through. At least I hope so, because I would feel so alone then.
Yeah, of course, of course. That was a too easy joke. Sorry.
And yeah, and when I was still working operationally, so I was with a company, I of course also had this thing. So I had one situation where a little bit like the mapper method originated, the first parts of it originated there, where I was working with a big publishing company. They did educational books and also digital products. And I was brought into, okay, we want to transform our business model. So we currently sell single licenses for all our digital products, but we know and we already sell manually class licenses, school licenses, and things like that. And also they wanted to have the perspective to go into a subscription model. So it was like, yeah, marketing and sales came up with the rough plan. It was clear that this is something the market is asking for. And the idea was like, okay, we have to update a little bit the web shop and here and there, and then it should work. And I was so, okay, that sounds good. I can do that. So I started to walk around and talk to people. And exactly, I had the situation. I had a meeting. I got some glimpse of, okay, information. I had a couple of questions. I usually went out with like 10 more questions and 5 more people I should talk to.
Oh, yeah, the usual.
The usual. So this like following the thread, and then of course like having conversations then which go into crazy detail, which is not needed at this point, and things like that. You know, everybody wants to, like, if you ask them about their topic, they will go into endless ramblings about that. So
Exactly. It feels a little bit like investigation work. So you need to kind of scavenge for getting the information that you want. It's like
yeah.
another German word that I recently learned, Schnitzeljagd.
Oh yeah.
Or like scavenger hunt, that you need
Exactly.
to follow the thread, go ask the next one, okay, you now give me a clue, and then the next one, you now give me a clue.
I love this picture because that's exactly also what I did, a little bit like this investigation work. So since I have a background in design, I'm pretty visual and I'm like mapping things. So I started to map out this customer journey, and now with your picture in my head, I'm a little bit like the person standing in front of the wall and starting to map everything out and draw connections between things. So that's what I did, but I just kept this map for myself. So I did a customer map of what currently is happening, what technical systems are involved, what teams are involved, what processes are involved, and so on and so on. And also added there what we probably need to change. But I did that for myself. So I was this investigator, and I didn't show the thing. So it was like, I'm a designer, I understand the thing, it's just for me. And so I went on and on through these meetings, and it got really painful. And people are asking already, okay, why is nothing happening? And then, by more or less a coincidence, I pulled up this board. So I had a board where all my notes more or less were. And suddenly, the people in the meeting were like, "Oh, okay, that's what we are after." And oh, you're completely wrong here. So this is not how it works. I think this you have to ask exactly this other team, which I haven't even heard of before. And so suddenly we had like a group discussion, and everybody could discuss about the same thing. And I didn't have to like start again and again, like explaining and what I'm after and so on and so on. I just pulled the thing up, and everybody was like, okay, I get it.
Oh, so interesting. So it kind of, the whole mapper method was born out of a coincidence that you showed this map to the rest of your colleagues. Nice.
Exactly.
So I have a question from the tech perspective, because we also love to draw charts and flow diagrams and so on and so forth. Do you have somehow a rule where to stop? Because when I would start to map everything that is happening in our company down to server level and API communications and so on, a lot of people will stop thinking. They got immediately tilted if they see too technical drawing. So where's the line to stop when drawing everything?
That's an interesting question. Yeah. So for me, there's a difference between documenting and having these maps as a working method. So I'm not after documenting. I'm not looking to document what's exactly there and getting like the whole overview. I'm after having an artifact which is capturing our discussion. So whatever comes up in the discussion and whatever it like the group decides is now the focus should be in the map, instead of we have to map just to map. So I reverse this whole, it's not a picture with showing everything which is possible. It's a picture with showing what's currently part of our conversation and where are we interested in. And since we are discussing now the visual stuff, also like people can reach out to me. There is like a small mapper guide. It's a preview, and if you contact me via LinkedIn or email, I will send this to you. So.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful, because we are talking very abstractly in an audio format about something very visual. So I think it would be really helpful if people reach out to you and get a snippet of this and learn more about it, and also try it. Because I think what's also really interesting for me is this solution, or this tool, kind of allows different conversation to form a very different map. So it's not a one size fit all kind of thing. But if you are talking about a very technical topic, then our map probably is going to take a very technical feel and look to it. But if we are talking about, I would say that even when we are talking about a release plan, which is a product marketing conversation, and like not necessarily only in the path of the product, but rather product and marketing aspect of it, it would take a complete different look. And I think that is very valuable, that multiple people in the team knows this format, and they can try to pull this out of their toolbox anytime they want to get deeper and get real with the conversation, to avoid this long meetings that goes nowhere.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So that's also why I don't prescribe like you have to use a service blueprint or you have to use a process map or things like that. So in the example, I'm working with a service blueprint and an assumption map, but it's like open for everything. My goal is to structure people with a visual helper and really going also through the whole product development process. So going through, okay, we first understand each other, and then moving on to, okay, what's the next important step to take? How do we test something? How do we investigate something? How do we de-risk something? And then go into also the reflection. And all this is anchored on your visual expression instead of having meeting after meeting and then usually either not going forward or over planning. So these are the two things I'm seeing the most.
I also really like the structured approach, and also I'm a big fan of putting things into phases. And I would be interested in, I mean, we have now obviously 6 phases you mapped out here in the plan. And how strict are you when, let's say, we are talking about mapping our thoughts first, right? And then suddenly I start to evaluate insights, for example. That is the step before the last one. Is it something where you say, okay, let's go with the flow, whatever comes is good? Or do you say more, hey, wait, let's put your thoughts aside, we are in a different step at the moment?
Okay, yeah. So first thing, a short answer, it's pretty flexible. It doesn't force you into anything. But I think also like the whole approach is quite natural to my experience. So maybe for the listener, because nobody sees it, let's quickly go through the steps. So that the first thing is like map your thoughts, and the exclamation mark is also on the your, because in most cases I say, like, if you're a product manager or also if you're an engineer or a designer, start with yourself. Start to express whatever is in your head, because oftentimes you go into a meeting or into a conversation and you either have a hard time to express yourself and people don't understand you, or you also trick yourself. You don't know things, but you think you know them. So that's the first step. And then go to other people and ask for feedback. So not go into a presentation mode and be like, I've drawn this nice picture, now please do it. It's more like, okay, what did I miss? What is not correct? Can you add your perspective? And then coming through this conversation to this shared understanding, and then pointing out like, okay, what's unclear? What are assumptions? What are risks? And then go into the action mode. So step 4 is then plan and act. And plan and act, I don't mean go now into a PI session and spend weeks and days in planning. But decide what's your next thing, what you have to know next, and how you're achieving that. And then you're coming to insights. So the insights coming from the outside, of course. And then the last step is just reflecting on this and starting all over again. But over time, also that gets more natural. So if you're used to work in a group like that, you maybe stop to map for yourself because you're just like in a group really good into mapping. And also like the reflection is getting more and more natural, of course.
Is it something, I really like the first step you underlined, to map out your thoughts, maybe block out 1 or 2 hours and just write it down already helps a lot. And if I'm working now with my product and tech team and we try to plan a new feature, for example, would you recommend all of us mapping out our own thoughts first and then we throw them together? Or should someone take the lead and say, okay, this is now our initial step to invite more perspectives on it?
So I think if everybody is already onto something, then you can start to map together also. But oftentimes somebody comes up. So a product manager comes with some request, with some customer problem, or you come from a technical perspective. You have to update a system, you have to refactor a bigger part or something like that. And also usually like somebody has some ideas about that, and this is the person who starts. Because if you're just going into a situation where everybody's starting just from their perspective, you usually would have a little bit of a harder time bringing this back together.
Definitely. I think both is difficult. First option would result maybe in a lot of merge conflicts. If all of us three brings our own maps, then maybe it becomes difficult to merge them. But I think also that if we sit together and try to map out together, the danger of falling into rabbit holes is pretty big, especially if you mix the professions and then suddenly two engineers start to discuss the refactoring that is needed.
Exactly.
Everyone else is slightly bored.
Exactly. And it's it's worse to have like this quiet time, and I don't ask people for like, okay, you now spend 5 hours and map this out and do like, oftentimes it's like half an hour writing a few stickies, and that's like enough to get like the rough idea. It's also not getting like into any single detail, but just get the rough idea out and then shop it around and get like input what you totally dismissed. So it should be quick to also get the feedback of, okay, that's like way too complicated how you're imagining it.
Yeah, great. That sounds like a very, very good step. I really like the approach. Gonja, do you have any last question?
No, but I think it also the first step reminds me of something that we sometimes also do in my team, which is another German word that I really love and use a lot, which is Grundlage, or a basis for discussion or a basis for like pointing out the issues of, and or what I call permanent beta. So it's a level that is like the basic part that you can point the issues and like try to fix it together. And I also really like it. I think it makes a lot of sense and brings a lot of real things forward instead of talking about just concepts, and on a very meta level, it makes things very tangible. And I really thank you, Christoph, for introducing us to this method. And I'm sure all of our listeners would also really benefit from it, no matter if they have started already in a career as a product manager, if they are really senior and want to improve, or if they're working with product managers, but they're not in product themselves. So thank you so much for sharing this, and I would invite everyone who is interested in this topic, in the Mapper method, to send a message to Christoph to learn a little bit more about it, maybe get some snippet here and there from him as well.
Yeah, totally. Reach out. I'm also always happy to discuss a situation where you think this might be helpful, or where you just need to get another perspective. So.
Yeah, also from my side, thank you a lot. Christoph Steinlehner, if you want to search him on LinkedIn. Otherwise, just follow the link in our show notes. That was super, super interesting. I'm now keen to map out my new product idea, because after you contact Christoph to get the PDF, that is very helpful. Make also sure to follow me on LinkedIn, because I have a new product idea. You will hear about it in the podcast, of course, but you can also get in touch with the first MVP in the LinkedIn very, very soon. So
nice. I always love to hear that.
Yeah, we definitely need to talk through it. And that's it, I would say. Thank you very much for stepping by and providing your insights.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun talking to you.
Yeah, same. And I want to ask also all of the listeners to follow the next episodes. We are going to go through the steps of becoming a product manager or starting your career as a product manager. And we are going through everything. So each chapter, we are going to focus on a different aspect. And it's really, really nice and super detailed curriculum that we've planned. So please stay tuned and make sure that you recommend this podcast to all of your other product manager friends that you have, and also people who are interested in product, people who are working in tech, everyone you know, basically. Just recommend this podcast, give us a 5-star, and thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.